Welcome to Higher Impact. I'm your host, Teresa Hairston. Tonight's show is going to be a phenomenal time of learning and growing, and I hope you're ready for it. I've got three dynamic pastors who I'm going to be talking to about everything from race relations to social justice to economic empowerment, all kinds of things. So stay tuned, don't go anywhere. Higher Impact will be right back.
Gospel Today. It was the #1 magazine for the urban Christian.
Gospel Today led the way for the African American Christian magazine. I'm talking about with excellence, with information, with the things that were necessary to excite people and to take the African American community to the next level where we could all be proud.
Get the new book that tells this incredible story at bookstoliveby.com.
Pastor Andre Butler is one of the unique sons in the ministry, son literally of Pastor Keith Butler, the pastor who founded Word of Faith in Detroit. But Pastor Andre, his son, has been doing some amazing things. He's got a new movie coming out called Match Made, as well as a number of other things that he's doing. Check this out.
Balloons are deflating. Guess they look lifeless like me. We miss you on your side of the bed. Still got your things here, and they stare at me like souvenirs. Don't wanna let you out my head.
I have a new deal. No, stop. And I'm gonna sing. And I'm gonna sing what I want to sing and wear what I want to wear and sleep with whoever I want to sleep with.
I've been warned about you.
Me?
You a stalker now?
I'm just trying to be your first groupie.
What makes you think you're the first?
I'm a grown woman.
Grown people pay their own bills.
I do pay my own bills. Do you still want me?
What? Stop on me, I'm gonna take that from you!
Do you think of me?
Welcome to Higher Impact, Pastor Butler.
Thank you for having me here.
It is an honor to have you here. So tell me about Faith Experience.
Well, we are in the downtown Detroit area. As you said, we're a church plant. We're really focused on reaching people far from God. There's a lot of great churches in Detroit. There's a lot of places for Christians to go to, but there are far more unbelievers than there are believers. You know, we want every unbeliever in the church, in the city, we wouldn't have enough room for them in our churches.
Yes.
And so the way God dealt with me about it was that, you know, he wanted me to start this church to reach the people we're called to reach. And we've done that. We're excited about what God is doing, and we're really excited about the future.
That's amazing. So when you say people that are not churched, you're just talking about what we're all looking for, people that are not saved, right?
Yes.
Or do you do something different?
It's both. It's people that are not saved and people that are backslidden, you know, prodigal sons. And in the city of Detroit, most people who are far from God used to go to church.
Wow.
And for whatever reason, they don't go anymore. And then you got a generation that's arisen in the city. I happen to believe that in our country, we're seeing the first unchurched African-American generation in our history. And so you see that in Detroit, and their churches need to reach them. And so
Why-
that's part of why we exist.
Why are people not, especially this next generation, why are they not coming to church?
Honestly, it may not be popular, but my opinion is we're not doing what Paul said in 1 Corinthians chapter 9. He said, I'll do anything to reach the lost. To the Jews, I became as a Jew. To the Greeks, I became as a Greek. To those without laws, as though I have no law, except I do have the law of Christ.
Yeah.
In general, my opinion, and I'm just, I'm a middle of the road guy, in terms of age, is that churches were not willing to adapt how they ministered to reach younger generations. We got caught up in our traditions, what we like, our preferences, and we forgot why we exist,
Wow.
which is to help people come into the kingdom of God. And so I think that's part of it. There are other things as well, but in my estimation, that's something that is significant.
That's great. Share with us some of the methodologies that you use to reach these people.
Well, first of all, they love authenticity. And being a preacher's kid, honestly, I never liked the pomp and circumstance of church, the tradition. There is a place for some tradition,
Yeah.
but younger generations kind of see through it.
Yeah.
And so they're just looking for somebody to be real. And so that's one of the things that we are. We're just real. Our presentation, even in terms of how we dress, the type of music we use,
Okay.
the terminology we use, doing things in community, small groups. These are all things that we've looked at and we made adjustments so that we can reach those who maybe wouldn't normally come to church.
That's interesting. So that's very new. And do you think ministry after the pandemic has got to be new and different?
Yeah, the world has changed.
Okay.
Yeah, it's changed forever. We're not going back to what it was before. I think the biggest thing is we have to embrace and learn how to do digital church. And that's not easy. That's something that I've been looking at and my team has been talking about over it sometimes. And I know other ministries who are doing it well and others who aren't. But the bottom line is that we would like to have everybody in the building with us.
Yeah.
And that's just not going to happen. So how do I minister to people that aren't coming into the building? And then you're seeing some ministries that have found a way to be national ministries, like a Mike Todd or a Stephen Furtick, because they've embraced online church.
Yeah.
So they have members all over the country, and they're very effective as ministries. So I'm kind of getting to the weeds here, but it's an exciting topic to me.
Yeah.
How do we do church now post-COVID?
Okay, that's great. So now I know post-COVID, you've got another project called Match Made. Match Made is a movie?
Yes.
Wow. And tell me about that.
Match Made is a movie about a young man who seems to have it all, but he's still empty. And he's convinced by his mother, what you need is the right woman. So when he meets this girl named Monica, he thinks this is it. And he figures out eventually that Monica has her own issues and that maybe this isn't what he's missing. And so we kind of go on a journey where Mike and Monica kind of figure out what's really important in life. It's funny, it's dramatic, but it's enlightening. And so it's something that we God put in my heart years ago, just had me on this journey to learn how to write screenplays and learn this business. And this is a first film for us. But it's another way that we're reaching people that are far from God, because there are some people that just will not come to church, but they will go to the movies.
That's right.
So that's part of what we're doing, and we're releasing that next month. So
it releases when?
We're having our premiere in Detroit on November 12th and in Atlanta on November 19th. And then we're actually going to launch our own streaming network called FaithX.
So will it be in theaters?
So we're going to do 2 premieres here, and then we'll go to our streaming network, and then we're going to go on the festival circuit and look at possibly getting some distributors. But honestly, we're in a new world.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of open. I'm not, I was originally locked into this has to be on 500 screens, 1,000 screens, 2,000 screens. But you see what's happened with streaming networks over the last year and a half or so. So we're going to just drop it on our streaming network while we look at other options. But if people want to catch it right away, they'll be able to do so.
So how can people get in touch with you or find out more about Match Made?
Well, of course, with me, you can find me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, etc. You can look for Andre Butler. TikTok, I am Andre Butler. That's where young folk are. Our website for the church is myfaithx.com. I have my own website, andrebutler.com. And then for the movie, we have a website now called matchmademovie.com. And that's where you can even buy tickets for the premieres.
I'm so excited about this next move, and I hope you'll stay in touch and come back to Higher Impact and tell us how it's all going, and be a big movie mogul. And now, you know, everybody, all the people that want to be in acting, they can come to you.
Yeah, well, as long as they're ready to glorify God, I'm all for it.
All right, I love it. Thank you so much for being my guest.
Thank you.
God bless.
Gospel Today. It was the #1 magazine for the urban Christian.
You gave everybody an opportunity to really open up the magazine and be proud to say, man, I will never forget Teresa Hairston and everything that she did to make sure that the gospel music industry was presented in a light that was both professional and that was also life-changing for those who would read it.
Get the new book that tells this incredible story at bookstoliveby.com.
When it comes to social justice and civil rights, at the forefront in Atlanta, of course, with the movement of the 60s with Dr. Martin Luther King, Dr. Andrew Young, Dr. Joseph Lowry, and so many more, was a church called Cascade United Methodist Church. I have the honor and the privilege of interviewing the pastor, the current pastor of Cascade United Methodist, Dr. Kevin Muriel. Well, Atlanta is the land of mega churches and great, great, great pastors. And I'm here with one of the city of Atlanta's favorite sons, Pastor Kevin Muriel. Oh, messed that up. Pastor Kevin Muriel, the pastor of the Cascade United Methodist Church.
Right.
Welcome.
Thank you. So good to be here with you.
Well, thank you for being on Higher Impact. Listen, you've been doing a lot of great things. You're young.
Well, I try to.
And you've taken over one of the historic churches in the city. How old is Cascade United Methodist?
Yesterday, we just celebrated 95 years of ministry.
Oh my goodness, 95 years. So you weren't even a thought.
I wouldn't thought of by then. No. Yeah.
How do you find as a young man going into a very seasoned ministry?
Well, it's a great responsibility. When you look at the history of Cascade and some of the great pastors and leaders who have come through the church, it's a great weight, great responsibility to take on that mantle of leadership. Yesterday, we also celebrated the 100th birthday of Reverend Dr. Joseph Lowry, one of my personal mentors who was a former pastor of Cascade.
Yes.
And so when you kind of think about that legacy, especially following after the dean of the civil rights movement, and of course Atlanta being the cradle for the civil rights movement, and Cascade having such a important role in that, it's just a great responsibility, and I'm humbled to be able to serve and lead.
So what kind of things did Cascade do to help the civil rights movement? Because a lot of people don't know. Yeah,
we were actually a meeting place. So during the movement and even many years thereafter, we would be a hub for leaders to come and lead and just to bounce ideas off the community. We were a meeting place, and they would come and strategize. Cascade has kind of always been that that pillar. We call ourselves a light in the community.
Yes.
And so as a result, we were very instrumental in that regard.
So that whole social justice movement has been really a foundational element of Black church. And how do, in this season, when so many people are talking about we're in the post-races, we're post, all of these things, what do you say to that?
Yeah, I don't think we're post anything yet. I think I think as you continue, even looking at last summer of 2020, the protests, many of the social injustices that we continue to see. What we are seeing is an unveiling of the fabric of America that has been linked to a history of racism and bigotry and discrimination. And yes, we have made significant strides, and I'm not taking anything away from that, but we still have so far to go. When you think about implicit bias and you think about how these things work themselves out in systems, educational systems, political systems, economic systems, even during the pandemic, Black and brown people were disproportionately affected by the coronavirus. And so these are things that the church must continue to talk about. We must continue to be on the forefront, leading these efforts, and then speaking truth to power, but also speaking truth in love, knowing that, we have a significant voice in the struggle for justice.
It's so interesting that you bring all that up because, of course, Dr. King, Dr. Lowry, they were pioneers of the civil rights movement, and Cascade was right there in the midst of it. So many African-American pastors and leaders were a part of that. But now you see Black Lives Matter and a lot of the movements that are not coming out of the Black church. Where is the voice of the Black church now? And where are we hearing that leadership? Who's the leader? Where we at?
Well, I get asked that question a lot, and the Black Lives Matter movement has not emerged from the church. What I think we are in desperate need of today is a revival within the church first, to really reclaim our voice in society, to look beyond some of the challenges that we have or have had, and say, what does the church truly stand for? What does the Black church stand for?
Is the Black church being redefined?
I don't know if it's being redefined. I just don't think it's being appreciated and really tapped into.
Well, there was a kind of an event that happened just a few weeks ago, and one of the very well-known pastors was preaching, and he stated there's no such thing as the Black church or a Black, the Black church. What do you say to that?
Well, I think to negate the power of the Black church is to truly negate history. I mean, when you really think about, let's just look at the civil rights movement. In fact, we can even take a step forward from the civil rights movement, and most of the activists and leaders that we see currently leading mega churches and churches of all size have emerged out of the Black church experience. I don't think you can separate the Black church from the power of what we have seen in terms of movements for racial justice in our culture.
How do you define the Black church as opposed to any other type of church?
Well, I don't think it's just, it's not monolithic in that regard. It's not just about a race of people gathering together to have church.
Okay.
No, the Black church really is a symbol of liberation. It is a symbol of education. I am who I am because of the Black church.
Yeah.
Had it not been for the Black church, Kevin Muriel wouldn't be sitting here right now. I
right.
wouldn't be doctor. Okay, right. And it is a community of faith built upon principles of love and justice, from which many of our educational institutions, our HBCUs, have emerged.
Yeah.
Many of our powerful, most effective leaders have come through the Black church. The Black church is not just an entity; it is an experience. It is a movement, and to negate the power of the Black church, I think, is to negate, the power of Christ in Christ. I mean, Christ moves through the power of the Black church. So
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. So I know that you are a prolific preacher and teacher and all that, but also an author.
Yes.
So you have a new book. Tell us about the new book coming out.
So the new book is titled Manifest, and the subtitle is How to Renew Your Mind and Change Your Life.
Wow.
It really came out of my experience during the pandemic. We dealt with so much loss in the church, so much loss in our country. It was really my experience of personal transformation. It's probably one of the most personal books I've ever written.
Really?
This is my third book.
Okay.
And so I'm just excited. It's going to come out in, I think, November, December.
Yes.
Excited for people to get a copy of it. And,
how can people get in touch with you?
So my website, kevinmuriel.com. You can go there, find all the information about the book. I'm also on social media at Pastor KRM.
That's fantastic. So parting words, I know that we're going into the last season of the year. What's next for you? What's next? I mean, the Black church, the church. Where are we going?
Well, I have a saying after every sermon, after every service. I say these words: live God, love God, and follow God, and in all things stay the course. We have to stay the course. We need leaders to rise up who have the voice of the prophetic, who speak truth to power, but who are very clear that in this season the church needs to be made known throughout the world. And if not us, then who? If not now, then when? And the Black church has a significant role to play in that. Leaders like yourself and others who are bringing to the forefront these issues must be heard in this season so that we can stay the course.
Years ago, one of the most brilliant legal minds in the nation was Dr. Harold Ray. Well, at that point, he was an attorney, but God arrested him and put him in the pulpit. And now he is leading the movement in a whole nother direction. He has some amazing things, insightful things to say. Listen to this. Welcome to Higher Impact, Bishop Ray.
Thank you so much, Teresa. It's a delight to be with you.
It's my honor. You are so many things to so many people for so many years. So let's start with this National Faith-Based Initiative, this organization that you've started, this center. Tell me what you do.
Well, the National Center for Faith-Based Initiative was founded in early 2000, actually 1999, going into 2000. And it is literally a faith-based collaborative. Our goal initially was to build a comprehensive, nationally based, faith-based collaborative that would focus on economic conditions, social conditions, that we're taking the lead from Dr. King, who prophetically stated that any religion that is not equally concerned as they are about souls, if they're not as equally concerned about the slums that damn them and the social conditions that cripple them and the economic conditions that strangle them, it's a dry as dust religion. And back in those days of 99, 2000, 2001, we noted that particularly the black populace was a highly consumer-based population. And that if we could weld the economic strength in many ways and focus that economic strength, particularly through faith-based initiative, because in the black community, and it's changed somewhat, but for the most part, the community with the nexus to the need was the church community. And so we began to develop nationally based, again, collaboratives that gradually not shifted but expanded into the National Center also becoming a technical assistance intermediary for place-based services all over the country, working with, again, localized, indigenous, if you will, faith-based communities to build coalitions, to strengthen coalitions, to train, particularly for those that were dealing with any governmental funding that was very critical for us, but also to help them to begin to establish, again, more of an economic paradigm within their local communities.
So let me just break that down because you talk real big. The churches, as faith-based organizations, you're wanting to help them to meet the needs of their communities. Is that what you help them to do?
Certainly the immediate parochial needs is a priority for any local church. I mean, obviously, if you're a local church in a community, you want to be of service to your local community. That's number one important. But what's strategically important for any sort of strength, be it voter registration, in terms of looking at our politics, in terms of economic strengthening and business strengthening nationally or regionally and then nationally, is to develop some sort of coalition that has more buying power, that has a stronger voice print when we would deal with the policy formations that deal with whether it's criminal justice or justice, period, whether we deal with, again, the economic issues, or whether we're trying to impact and influence policy decisions that are keeping our people in our communities disenfranchised. Because a lot of times what's happening locally is a result of a filter down, many times, from erroneous policies or neglected policy possibilities and reformations that would help elevate our communities.
So give me some examples, maybe one or two, of what kind of projects you guys have been involved in recently.
Well, the most recent has been, and we're very proud of, our nationally published report entitled Never More Urgent. Never More Urgent has been done in collaboration with the Sustainable Development Commission. And it is a publication where there's been intensive study, collaborated with also Howard University and the professors, a couple of the professors there, a very comprehensive, analytically based study on how from COVID-19, it exacerbated many of the long-standing maladies already within, again, primarily communities of color. Never More Urgent focuses on Black, Hispanic, or Latinx now, and indigenous communities, and found in our study that there are five primary areas that have long been maladies, but COVID-19 simply helped expose how deep those maladies were, whether they're in the justice system, whether they're in education, whether they're in our economics, whether they're in economic security, which was a big one. Food and housing security was also a big one there, and then health. access to quality health. 5 key areas that we have over 100 pages of strong analytical data that helps us understand how these maladies have been perpetuated in our communities of color.
So how can someone get a hold of this report?
They can simply go to ncfbi.org, ncfbi.org, and once they're in our website there, the report is available for them to download, free of charge.
When you talk about an organizational effort to unite and to bring our pastors to a higher level of influence, I mean, how do you do that?
It really is tough for a number of reasons. Number one, you're talking about diversity of visions that all still have kind of a commonality of wanting to do something for God and wanting to have a major move and all of this. To build, I think that we're being put in our hands, so to speak, though, now many visions or many opportunities for having our visions address things that are right on the relevancy table, the top of the relevancy table for where people are being affected right now in their lives. Speaking truth to power is one area. Well, speaking truth to power, we first have to begin with speaking truth, period, because truth has become relative. Truth has become the big lie. Truth has become alternative facts. Truth has become fake news. And all of it being used to perpetuate mythological predicates to things that have kept our people particularly under biases, supremacies, presumptive lifestyles, privileged lifestyles. So I think that organizationally, that to begin to help even the local pastor be able to identify how they go about, even on the local level, speaking truth to power, becoming involved in policy initiatives on the state level, the voting issues that are going on. We've watched now 40-something states that have simply done a total reversal on voting rights. The John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act is stuck in the Senate. There doesn't seem to be any pressure on. But in all of these states that it's happening in, there's been little to none clergy cohesive response or proactive engagement of why are we, creating these policies and changing voting rights. So, I mean, there's so many areas, but altogether, Teresa, I think that seriously, instead of just looking at having church and growing big organizations, we've got to take a serious look at a comprehensive, strategic, policy-oriented approach to shifting government, shifting policy. And I mean, everything's crying out for the same thing, be it police reform, again, policy. We tend to react to the results of policy. I think, for example, one of the great things that we're seeing, and there are those that would criticize me for it, is CRT, critical race theory. And to perpetuate, and people are saying, well, you're teaching hatred, you're teaching that. And I ask the question, are you really serious that to just simply expose what has been the perpetuation of myths based upon supremacy and privilege is race? I mean, it's crazy, that they would have us continue to live disenfranchised and inferior lifestyles based upon their privilege and presumption, and instead of having to talk. But don't talk about it.
Right. Right. Well, thank you so much, Bishop Ray. So much.
Yeah,
as
we'll
usual.
get into
I expected all that and more. Thank you so much for
having
being
me. It's
a
a
part
pleasure.
of Higher Impact.
Thank you.